of you remember me in 2003 ringing the bell and shining a light on the city's financial problems, the pension system. I'm not new to reform, and I've laid out plans, perhaps every month, perhaps probably too much planning and rolling out of ideas. So I'm frustrated when they say, well, there's no plan, because a lot of the promised reforms they're going to get to are things that I pioneered and I laid out, along with real reformers, like the Taxpayers Association, that is opposed to Proposition D, like April Bowling, who chaired our Pension Reform Committee in 2004, who's also helping me oppose Proposition D. Reformers are united. The reformers who uncovered the financial problems and have led the way in offering credible, thoughtful, methodological solutions to our city's financial problems, they're all opposed to Proposition D. I have put out a plan to end brownouts. It was in August. Found the money. You guys won't docket it. You guys won't open those stations. I've requested 2 times that we docket that plan. They want the brownouts because they need their scare tactics, they need their symbols of decay in San Diego to scare you with. And now you see city officials running around town like it's Halloween, early, saying, oh, well, if you don't pass Prop D and give us more money, you're going to die. You're going to get robbed. You're going to get sick. Baloney. Would you actually give any trust to someone who's doing that to you? You know what our plan is? You guys say that if you implement reform, you can save $75, $85 million. Show us. Let's do it. Let's close the budget gap. Of all the so-called reforms that they say that they're promising to do down the line, if you actually implement them, using the mayor's own numbers that he released in August, if you actually implement the reform, you can save $75, $85 million right there. And I have put additional reforms on the table, as has Councilmember Faulkner, as have April Bowling and the Taxpayers Association. So, do we have a plan? You bet. It's all the ideas that they're now saying that eventually they're going to get around to if you only give them $1 billion up front. Come on. Same people who are trying to scare us, same people who are trying to scare us to get our money. So, I think that it's pretty clear to stand up here and say that we don't have a plan when we have a plan, and all of you out there who've seen since 2003 all the plans that we've offered, there are a lot of ideas that need to be implemented first before we raise taxes. And the only way you're going to get those ideas implemented is if you say, do it first and then come back for money. Because some people don't do that.
This is a great thing, and it's really great everybody's here. This is, I think now we should go to some questions from the studio audience here. And it's Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Otter, you want to answer questions too?
Come on up.
So please address the question, a brief question to whomever you're interested in. And I'll put this out here for Brad. Could you help?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Who do we got?
Maybe we could start with our past president here.
Who's that?
I don't need that.
Okay.
Why don't we have Proposition E, which implements what you're talking about?
Well, you almost had that. We collected about 135,000 signatures, but they found 30 duplicates, and they said we're going to disqualify 30,000 signatures on that basis in the competition and transparency ballot measure. We have pulled together a pension reform measure that we also are ready to move forward on and put on the ballot. And it gets to the heart of the issue, which is I don't want you to take my word for anything. I want to have a contract in San Diego. I want a pledge. I want a commitment. And that commitment has to be put to a public vote, and you have to force us to do these things by saying you shall implement on this schedule with these accountability targets. And that's the only way I believe we're going to get real reform. So, to your point, that's exactly what we need in San Diego. A pension reform measure on the ballot that's imposed, a real open competition measure on the ballot that strengthens Prop C, because we voted for it, but they didn't implement it, and additional reforms such as a spending freeze with an infrastructure and reserve lockbox. There's there's a number of things that we're going to be putting forward for a public vote as we implement the budget that will balance by 2012.
I want to note that none of those reforms will be achievable by July 1st, 2011. So you're still stuck with the service cuts that we're talking about.
Sir?
This is directed to Mr. Goldsman. Are there any provisions within Prop D that should the City Council, after the adoption by the populace, should they renege on any of those? Is there anything that says, okay, now the sales tax is over because you took back?
That's a good question, except for the word renege. So what we'll do is we'll rephrase it and say, if they adopt something and later rescind it,
Yes.
does the tax get rescinded?
Yes.
No.
Mr. LaPava?
For both of you, actually, the question is, first, thank you for your service to the city, both of you. You come from different points. There's been quite a bit of confusion about the initiative that Vincent Mudd has introduced, and I think the council is supporting. So we have the 10 mandatory requirements for the sales tax and these 10 additional, or not 10, but additional. Is the city council going to commit to satisfying the Mudd initiative before asking Mr. Luna to trigger?
Well,
Or I'll give him a chance first, and then if you.
Well, I would like our city auditor, who I asked the same question of on Monday.
No, I know it's not mandatory, but would the city council commit to implementing those before asking for certification?
We don't ask for anything. Mr. Luna independently certifies. We can't even go and ask him and say, oh, it's time. Mr. Luna decides when the triggers have been met. And Mr. Luna, does the Mudd resolution have any impact on your ability or your power or your obligation to trigger once the conditions to your satisfaction have been met?
The Mudd resolution does not. It has no bearing on working on with regards to the proposition.
Let me try and engage on this. Vincent Mudd, who is a local businessman, highly respected, and 11 of his friends and colleagues in the private sector, did an analysis of Proposition D. And they were asked the question, could Proposition D resolve our structural budget deficit? They said yes. They said, without Proposition D, can we resolve our city's structural budget deficit? Their answer was unlikely. The City Council adopted a resolution with the support of our mayor that goes beyond Proposition D to establish some of the targets and numerical coefficients that are necessary to, by 2017, 2018, resolve the city's structural budget deficit. Prop D is temporary. It's only 5 years. And what it's done is it forces the City Council and the mayor to work with our labor unions to reduce the cost of government so that when the tax goes away in 5 years, the city's budget is balanced. Vincent Mudd and his crew wanted some more specificity behind that to give us real targets to make us hit it. So because over those 5 years, we're going to have to continue to find efficiencies to reduce the cost. He laid that out. The council reviewed it, agreed to it, and adopted it. This is the way out of our fiscal nightmare here in the city. Year after year, you've heard nothing but from City Council that we're running short, that we don't have enough money. We have made reforms, we have made reductions, over 300 million, 1,400 positions eliminated, a new pension system, elimination of drop, the 13th check, a number of those things that you've heard about. And yet we're still in this position. Why is it? Why are we in the same position that 9 out of 10 American cities are in? Because of the recession, because of Sacramento, and because of some of our ongoing problems. Some of the ongoing problems are addressed in Prop D. We can solve this problem with Prop D. If you ask Vincent Mudd, we can't do it without it. I think you already answered.
I have Mr. Luna answer. That's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, let's,
Can I ask you the same question?
About Vincent Mudd's resolution?